Blessings, blessings. How's it going, everybody? Yeah. Everybody. Beautiful.
Up a little bit. Good morning. Good afternoon, actually. My name is Belmaris Sosa, and I'm a Spanish teacher here at Brooklyn Arts and Science Elementary School, and I'm part of the founding team. As a Brooklyn native, seeing the New York City mayor, the First Lady, and the Chancellor participate in the work that I feel so passionately about was truly incredible and something that I won't soon forget. Social Emotional Learning, or SEL, has made an enormous impact on our students and our school since we launched the program about 3 years ago. Some of our students come to school feeling sad or in emotional pain, and they need someone to believe in them, to support them, and to show them friendship and love. That's what SEL does. We can't expect our students to successfully get our students to focus on math and science if we don't first address what may be on their minds and on their hearts. We can't ask them to understand characters in books or social movements across history if we don't first teach them how to communicate and empathize with one another. Social emotional learning teaches our students to express their ideas and their feelings, and it teaches our classmates to better understand each other. It sets them up with the life skills that they'll need after they move on to middle school, high school, college, and beyond. And through this announcement today, we're ensuring that more teachers can make this a reality in our classrooms. When we teach our young children how to look, how to listen with one another, how to share their ideas, their opinions, and listen to each other, we create a beautiful classroom environment. I plant these seeds in every single classroom that I visit, starting with a lesson, with a check-in on how the students are feeling on that particular day. This work is critical to the work that we do in the classroom and at every level of our school community. And I'm so grateful to the mayor, the First Lady, and our Chancellor for championing this work. Thank you. I would now like to introduce Rakaya Key, who is a student leader who is putting her SEL skills into action as a restorative justice leader in her school.
Thank you for that. Hello, my name is Rakaya Teresa Key. I am a youth leader from Urban Youth Collaborative and Sisters and Brothers United. We are a youth of color-led coalition fighting to end the school-to-prison pipeline. As young people, we have been fighting for the city to rethink safety in our schools. Safety is every young person being able to talk to a guidance counselor and social worker. Safety is all schools being trained to be restorative. Safety is not punitive zero-tolerance policies. Today, we stand closer to that vision. I've grown up in the Bronx where I attended school from pre-kindergarten through 11th. From 2nd through 11th, I did not feel a part of my school communities. I felt as if I was the problem, that school just wasn't simply for me. I faced hardship mainly outside of school with family issues, but I took them with me as I went into school. Oftentimes, I would be absent and come back to teachers, staff, and my peers making apathetic comments about me never being in school, calling me a dropout. Those moments contributed to me feeling alienated. For my senior year, I was fortunate enough to transfer to a school in Manhattan where I was introduced to restorative justice. Many people have different definitions for restorative justice. I would define my experience as an opportunity or a tool for people, no matter how young or how old, to learn, develop emotionally, hold themselves accountable, all while having the support and backing of a community. It develops listening skills, empathy, and most of all, communicational skills, something that we all need today, especially since students are in schools for 8 hours or more in a day. Those tools give a whole new power to our school communities. School is more than a place for intellectual learning. It is a place for social development. Just like my teacher, Miss Nolan, guided me through Pythagorean theorem, or Miss Crossley taught me how to analyze great pieces of literature, someone should have been there to guide me through life's challenges and assist me through analyzing my emotions, my actions, and help me better understand how those things affect not only me, but the communities that I am a part of. We are glad that after many years of seeking equity in our education system, we are bridging those gaps. This today is a historic moment, led by youth like me. Even though we have seen great progress, there is still far more work to do. Discipline in our school and city still disproportionately impacts people of color. I'm going to continue organizing, but today is a celebration and a great step forward. We thank the mayor, the first lady, the chancellor, and the deputy chancellor for the steps that we are taking today. We thank all of the youth that came before us. The city is going in the right direction, bringing restorative justice to all schools, increasing the number of social workers, and lastly, limiting suspensions and arrests is a step towards ending the school-to-prison pipeline. And not only that, it's also giving the essentials needed to youth to become leaders for tomorrow. With that, I am very excited to introduce Mayor de Blasio.
Micaiah, I don't think you have to worry about becoming a leader of tomorrow. I think you're a leader of today already. Thank you for your passionate leadership. For so many others, I want to say to all the student activists and leaders in the room, we heard you, your voices mattered, your ideas mattered, and we're here today because of your great work. Everyone give each other a round of applause for that. And Belmaris, thank you for your great work as an educator. We honor you, we thank you. I thought that was a clear and passionate explanation of why social emotional learning matters so much. Thank you for making it so real and pertinent to everybody. The message today is we are all in this together. Students, educators, administrators, parents, the entire city government, all the people in New York City, we're in this together. Now, since we're in this together, I think we can agree on something right here, right now. This announcement today is very hot. It is a hot announcement. Everyone agree with that? Hot, important announcement. It's also hot in here. So, if you have a jacket, you can take off. I want to say to the distinguished group to my left, I am going to lead the way. It's up to you. If you want to sweat, that's your thing. Okay, but I am not going to go through that. But the real point is the ideas are hot, the progress is hot, and people worked hard. This was an example of listening to a lot of people. Our educators, front line, the folks who make such an impact for our children, they had so much to offer here in thinking about how to get it right. Our parents who see what their kids need, they had so much to say. This came from a lot of hard work and smart work and a lot of listening. And the idea of this announcement today follows on a series of other things we've done. It is to shake the foundations of our school system. Because I think one thing that would unite a lot of us is to say, that for too long our school system didn't get it right. And for too long, people's voices weren't heard. And we were missing out on so many opportunities to do better. I said at the very beginning, we were missing it on early childhood education for decades. Now we have pre-K for all, and soon we're going to have 3K for all. We were missing out on college readiness. We have a long way to go. We had the most kids go on to higher education last year that we've ever had in our history. For too many years, we were losing kids. They were dropping out. They weren't able to get to the finish line. Last year, we had the highest graduation rate, the lowest dropout rate in our history. And everyone here had a lot to do with that. It was also an extraordinary group effort. But it became clearer and clearer that we couldn't go to the next level without really doubling down on social emotional learning. That was a piece that was missing, and it's missing, honestly, pretty much all over the United States of America. And we have an opportunity to get it right here in the nation's largest city. And we have an opportunity to set a new pace for this city and for this country by finally recognizing the whole child, everything going on in their life. It was also about having a very different conversation about emotional well-being and a very different conversation about mental health, and not acting like these things were not part of people's everyday lives and what they needed to have out in front, out in the open. And this, you may have from time to time heard me praise our First Lady. You may have heard that. Well, I'm going to praise her again, because when she started this work in 2015 on Thrive, the idea was to take down that stigma that was holding us back, dismantle that stigma, and open up a conversation and change this city, change hearts, change minds, save lives. And that's what our First Lady has done. That's what Thrive has done. And it started with making sure that every single school, 1,800 schools, every single school had access to mental health professionals, something that was unheard of in the past, but Thrive achieved that. But now we have to go farther, and the idea today is to take that idea that Thrive has made so central and infuse it into everything we do in our schools, revolutionize the way we think about education and our children by talking about all of them, everything about them, what they need to succeed today and in their future. Many, many people have contributed to getting us to today. I want to shout out some names, and you can clap energetically for all of them. The director of Thrive NYC, Susan Herman, thank you. Deputy Chancellor for School Climate and Wellness, LaShawn Robinson, thank you. All right. I think they like you, LaShawn. They like you. They really, really like you. So, someone who has done tremendous dialogue and listening to help ensure that educators and public safety officers were all on the same page. Assistant Chief at NYPD for School Safety, Ruben Beltron. Thank you. A leader in our government who fought tirelessly for the new social workers, and that is because he was a teacher himself. He understands it. The chair of our Education Committee, Councilmember Mark Traeger. The folks who did the work day by day to get the policies right, to really listen, to really hone in on what we needed. All the members of the mayor's leadership team on school climate and discipline, thank them all. And no one will be offended if I say I saved the best for last. Our youth leaders. First of all, thank you, Urban Youth Collaborative. It's so damn hot in here. The Dignity in Schools Coalition, thank you. And Integrate NYC, thank you. And so the idea from the beginning was to hear people in a new way. Shirley, when she started Thrive, went and listened to people all over the city for almost a year, and what she heard consistently was people were suffering in silence because they had a mental health challenge. Young people felt unheard. They felt their lives were not being reflected in their schools. Thrive was all about breaking down those barriers, and Shirley and I had a powerful experience after the tragedy in Parkland, Florida. We convened a town hall meeting with students, with student leaders and activists. And what we heard from them, the topic, of course, was to react to this extremely painful moment in our nation's history. And it was, you would think on the surface, just about gun violence, but what it turned into was a much deeper conversation about what our young people needed. And at one point, Shirley asked them, several hundred students, what they felt about mental health, what they needed. And hands went up and stories were told. People spoke from the heart. Young people spoke from the heart. And they said they needed more social workers. They said they needed more people in the school who would understand them and listen to them. More people had the tools to help them. They said they needed their teachers to get the support and training to be able to help them with their challenges. We heard it loud and clear. So, for too long, in fact, not only were students left out there without the support and the tools, our teachers were left out there without the support and the tools. They wanted, I've talked to so many teachers, so many educators, for years and years, they always want to go to the next level. They always want to reach every child. They feel they're putting everything they got on the line every day, but a lot of times they feel there's not the backup they need to achieve the mission. I tell you, no one wants those social workers more than our teachers, because it's going to make a huge difference for them. It's going to help them do the job they came here to do. This is a moment of change. This is a moment where students are going to get the support they need to be their best selves. Teachers are going to get the tools they need to help a child, the whole child, when there's a challenge or a problem. It's going to help us build a stronger and fairer city. And before a few words in Spanish, I have a very simple quote here that epitomizes why we are making this investment. And you're going to hear from the speaker in a moment, and I want to say right up front, this was such a priority for the City Council, such a focus for them, and I commend them. It is something the Council should be so proud of. But I listened to the speaker, I listened to council members. I think this quote epitomizes so much of what you feel. And it's from another century, so I'm going to read it in its original, but the last word could be, obviously, people. And it comes from Frederick Douglass. He said, "It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men." That's what today is all about. En Spanish, hoy anunciamos un programa que llevará educación socioemocional a todos los alumnos de nuestras escuelas públicas. Ellos nos dijeron lo que necesitan y los estamos escuchando. Este es un momento de cambio cuando nuestros estudiantes deben saber pueden contar con la ayuda que necesitan. With that, I'm going to turn to my partner in all things, but she has led the way. She has open mind. She has shown us that something could happen very, very different in this city, and this is a day she has been talking about over the breakfast, dinner, everything, in the car. She has been talking about this day for a long time, and she knew it would come, and she led the way to this moment. Our First Lady, Shirley McCray.
Thank you, Bill. Good afternoon, everyone. It may be a gray and cloudy day outside, but I think we're all feeling our inner sun with this hot announcement and this plan that will transform our school environments. I want to say before I begin that yes, I am a champion for SEL, for restorative justice, have been for years and years, but this would not have been possible without everyone that our mayor just named, but also Sanford Harmony. That was actually the component that helped give us more of the support and the structure that we needed to make sure that we could do a comprehensive plan from, we're starting in pre-K all the way through K. So thank you, Dr. Cunningham, who's here representing Sanford Harmony, and you'll be hearing from him in a little bit. The pre-K through 12th grade strategy that we are implementing is totally in keeping with what we know about child development and gives our educators much more support. Now, most of us didn't grow up thinking about strengthening and maintaining our mental health as a work in progress the way we do our bodies, but we can. There are skills we can learn to help us regulate our emotions, have more rewarding relationships, and cope with stress and conflict all throughout our lives. And these skills are important for all of us, but they're especially important for our children who are just starting out in life. When we created Thrive NYC, one of our goals was to act early. That's one of our principles. Not only to prevent illness and intervene at the first signs of disease, but to provide more children with a strong social-emotional foundation to promote resilience. Educators in our pre-K classrooms are already emphasizing social-emotional learning to help our youngest New Yorkers. By building this foundation early, children develop stronger communication, decision-making, and problem-solving abilities, lifelong skills that we all need every day. Students who receive social-emotional training feel the benefits throughout their lives. They are better learners. They are better able to manage stress and less likely to struggle with drug use. They develop more positive attitudes, show better behavior in school, and their academic performance improves as well. Now, thanks to years of work and advocacy by so many people, including, of course, the many young people who are here today, New York City schools will have the most comprehensive and proactive approach to social-emotional learning in the nation. And that's so important, I'm going to repeat it in Spanish. Las escuelas de nuestra ciudad tendrán el enfoque más completo y proactivo a la educación socioemocional en nuestro país. Over the next 3 years, in partnership with National University and Long Island University, we will bring a nationally respected social-emotional learning teaching program called Sanford Harmony into every elementary school in the city. Yeah. Now, Chancellor Carranza and I just saw the program in action with a wonderful group of kindergartners, which is one of the reasons why we're both in such terrific moods. We read a book about school year memories, and the kids told us what Z, the main character, was feeling. Interactive stories like this are one of the many ways children learn how to recognize and name their own emotions. As students mature, as they get older, we want them to continue growing and strengthening their social-emotional skills. That's why in every middle school and high school, a restorative justice curriculum will guide students to look more closely at their own experiences and provide them with support to solve problems and manage difficult emotions. Restorative justice gives students opportunities to come together and learn to be open and accountable to themselves, their classmates, and the entire school community. Let me share an example. At Meyer 11 Junior High School in East Flatbush, the entire 6th grade gathers for a town hall meeting every day. They cheer on each other's successes and support one another through struggles. When one student shared her worries about the results of her grandmother's custody hearing, there was no jeering or taunting. Her classmates responded with empathy and encouragement. We all need this kind of support sometimes. Most of us know what it's like to try and focus at work while worried about a sick child, or if we're distracted by an argument with a spouse. Well, some students walk into the classroom with tremendous pain or emotional distress. Maybe a fight with a friend left them angry. Maybe they are fearful that their family will be evicted from their home, or they are grieving the loss of a family member or a friend. Without the skills and the safe space to talk through how they are feeling, they might express their emotions by withdrawing and not participating in class, or by drawing attention to themselves with disruptive behavior. Now, I know this well from my own childhood experience. Children have to feel like they can talk about what they are feeling. The appropriate question to ask in these cases isn't, "What's wrong with you?" The question to ask is, "What happened to you? Why are you feeling this way?" As we proactively provide skills and support for students to help them deal with negative emotions constructively before they become a problem, we will also encourage young people to be accountable for their actions, take ownership, and make things right when they make a mistake. We have already seen a dramatic decrease in suspensions in schools that use restorative justice, and we expect more of the same system-wide. This new approach will enhance learning in the classroom and lessen the time spent out of the classroom, especially for students of color who are suspended at higher rates than their peers. I am delighted, truly delighted, to say that thanks to Speaker Johnson and the New York City Council's leadership, that we will add 85 Thrive social workers to help support children in serious emotional distress. And in partnership with the United Federation of Teachers, our highest need middle schools will train every adult in the school community to support the emotional needs of students, even those in crisis, through the Positive Learning Collaborative model. That means not only principals and teachers will be trained, but cafeteria and custodial staff, receptionists, and classroom aides as well. All these adults touch a child's life. You don't know who a child is going to be talking to or bonding with. It's important for all adults in a child's life to have these skills and be able to reinforce what they're learning. Together, these changes will make our schools better places to learn and better prepare our students to succeed in every aspect of their lives, from the workplace to their relationships, to their physical health and home life. Parents count on schools to help their children grow into healthy, well-adjusted adults, able to navigate the world effectively. But we all benefit when we invest in our young people. Nuestras escuelas ofrecerán ahora una educación más completa que prepara mejor a nuestros niños para triunfar en cada aspecto de sus vidas. Todos ganamos cuando invertimos en nuestros jóvenes. I want to thank you again to everyone who is here today. You can see it really did take a village to pull this one off. And I can't thank you enough for getting us to this announcement. This is a giant step for our children, and we're not finished yet. So thank you.
I'll be quick now. I'm going to introduce our Chancellor. This is someone who truly believes and has believed throughout his career in the power of social emotional learning, and you're helping to make it happen in the nation's largest city. Chancellor Richard Carranza.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you all for being here. I recognize so many faces. Just last night at our public education panel meeting, we had a dedicated group of educators and community people that dutifully every month come and remind us about how important this issue is. And I was biting my tongue. I couldn't say a word last night, but they said, we need this now, and today is now. So thank you for being there. And everybody's commented about the heat. Look, I was born in Arizona. This is just a nice spring day. And just think of it as an opportunity for self-moisturizing in your face, okay? That's how we get through it. You like that? Okay. So obviously, I want to also thank Speaker Johnson, who's been just an incredible partner in this work. I want to thank President Mulgrew from UFT, obviously Dr. Cunningham, our education chair in the City Council, just a true warrior for children. Mark Traeger, thank you. Susan, thank you for your work with Thrive. Chief Beltron, my brother, thank you. He can also sing and dance, by the way. I don't know if you know this. But my friends, there is a group that I also want to recognize because we have made it a focus that we will not only hear our student voices, we will give them a place at the table, and we will have their policy recommendations reflected, and today is a reflection of their policy recommendations. So I also want to thank Teens Take Charge, who are here today as well. And I'm going to be brief, but I just want to say this. I've lived and worked now in 5 states. I've lived and worked in 5 urban school systems. And I am so proud of the colleagues that I have here that form part of my cabinet. They are the most knowledgeable, the most passionate. They are the best qualified, no matter what anybody says, to lead this work. And when I arrived and this work was stuck, they were the group of educators and leaders that unstuck the work, that listened to our community, and here we are today. So I want to recognize, you've heard our Deputy Chancellor for School Claimant and Wellness, LaShawn Robinson. Our Deputy Chancellor for Community, not engagement, Community Empowerment, Partnerships and Communication, Hydra Mendoza. Our first Deputy Chancellor who is leading with distinction and with such incredible integrity, Cheryl Watson-Harris. Our Chief Operating Officer, Ursula Ramirez. Our Deputy Chancellor for School Planning and Development, Karen Goldmark. My Chief of Staff, Edie Sharp. And all of my colleagues from the Department of Education who believe, Mark Rappersant's here, thank you, sir, who believe in this work, not because it's work, it's the right thing to do. So from the very first day, I would say the very first conversation that I had with Mayor de Blasio and the First Lady, it was clear to me how much they cared about our students, but it was also clear to me that when the First Lady and I spoke about the importance of social-emotional learning, there was a certain glee in her eye. She has been leading our city and our nation in destigmatizing mental health and expanding mental health and social-emotional supports. She and I spoke at length about the role of that work in our schools and how it must be proactive and preventative and give students and teachers the tools that they need to not only reflect upon what they do, but to have the tools and the training to change the way we work with our students. Needless to say, I'm thrilled to be here today. Today we're coming together around a simple but a common sense approach. When we support the whole child and foster safe and supportive learning environments, our students will succeed. When we keep students in the classroom instead of relying on suspensions, they will succeed. And they're more than just ideas. You see, these are proven approaches that we know work. Right here in New York City, if you look at District 16, they've led the way. These ideas and approaches work. I've also seen these ideas and approaches work across the country, like in Oakland, where implementation of restorative justice led to a drop in the rate of students being suspended from more than 40% to 4% in just 6 years. We know that it works here in New York City with a 12% decrease in suspensions that have implemented a district-wide restorative model. This administration has championed social-emotional learning and restorative approaches from day one. Yet skeptics have said, if you move away from punitive approaches and focus on keeping kids in schools while also holding them accountable, our schools will be less safe. I say that is a false narrative. It is not true. And that's what has not happened here in New York City. So under the leadership of this mayor, Mayor de Blasio, suspensions have gone down 31%, and NYPD has seen a 29% decrease in major crimes in schools. So it's the proof that this approach can work. and it's common sense. If students learn how to resolve conflicts and build relationships with each other and with staff members, they're less likely to act out. Skeptics said if you move away from punitive approaches and focus on keeping students in the classroom while holding them accountable, academic outcomes will decline. Well, we're showing that's not true in New York City. Graduation and college readiness rates are at record highs, and dropout rates are at record lows, and test scores continue to improve. Again, it's common sense. If students will achieve academically when they're excelling socially and emotionally. So today we are doubling down and formally expanding our social-emotional learning and restorative justice work to reach every school, not some of the schools, every school in the largest school system in America, right here in New York City. Let me emphasize this, that as much as this approach makes sense based on the research, based on New York City statistics, I know as a former classroom teacher and a principal that when we make major policy change, we need to give our practitioners the resources they need to make it work. So I want to thank Mayor de Blasio, I want to thank our First Lady for that focus today. I want to thank our City Council and our Speaker for prioritizing that. Not just an idea, but the nitty-gritty how we support our educators to make it a success. And today, I also need to give a shout out because I'm excited to announce that we're deepening our partnership with the NYPD in our schools through a new Memorandum of Understanding, an MOU that changes the patrol guide. And I want to thank Police Commissioner O'Neill, and I want to thank Chief Beltron for your partnership. Now, my friends, I know for a fact that not every police officer has an MOU in their back pocket and looks at the MOU. But what I can tell you is that every police officer has a patrol guide. So for this change in how police are in our schools to be in the patrol guide is a seminal moment in our history in New York City. And I want to thank the commissioner and our chief for making that happen. So today is a big step forward. It's a big step forward for restorative practices and creating those environments in our schools that we know is an enlightened approach and not a punitive approach. My friends, this is the work. Now is the time. We are the people. So let's go and get to work and make sure our communities are the enlightened, supportive, great communities that we're building for today and for tomorrow. Solamente quiero decir en español que hoy es un día gigantísimo para nuestra comunidad. Este es el día que hemos soñado, que hemos esperado, que hemos luchado, que hemos tenido en nuestros sueños que llegaría algún día. Este es el día. Es el día en cuanto estudiantes van a quedarse en las escuelas y no van a ser desalojados afuera de nuestras escuelas. Es el día en que nuestros maestros y nuestros directores van a tener no tan solo el entrenamiento, sino que los recursos para cambiar el modo de tratar con nuestros estudiantes en nuestras escuelas. Este es un día gigantísimo y gracias a todas las voces que han hecho posible este día tan maravilloso para los estudiantes de nuestra ciudad. Muchísimas gracias, señor alcalde, la señora primera señora, a todos los que están aquí presentes. Gracias por su ayuda, gracias por su apoyo y a trabajar.
Gigantissimo. Not just gigante, gigantissimo. It's a really important day. I want to say Speaker Corey Johnson leads with passion, and he is purposeful, and we had many a conversation. He said this was one of the most important things from his point of view, from the council's point of view, and they said this is what we had to get done this year, and because of his leadership and the council, it got done this year. Yes. Speaker Corey Johnson.
I want to thank you, Mayor de Blasio. I want to thank you for your leadership and for really getting it. When I come to you and I say social workers are important, you understand why. It's not a conversation that requires a lot of detail because you intuitively understand the value of this. And I think so much of that is because of the work that the First Lady has done. And I want to thank her on this very, very exciting announcement today. I want to thank our great school's chancellor, someone I am proud is the chancellor of the New York City school system, Chancellor Carranza. for his leadership. I want to thank our president from the United Federation of Teachers, a dear friend, an amazing leader, someone who wouldn't leave me alone about social workers throughout the entire budget process. I want to thank Michael Mulgrew for his amazing leadership. And then lastly, I want to be, I'll self-modulate on how I describe this, but Mark Traeger would not leave me alone. From the very moment that the budget process began until the handshake, he was literally every day, multiple times a day, even on the weekends, asking me about social workers, getting the most number possible at the budget negotiating team, in the education hearings, in the OMB hearings, in private meetings. Mark Traeger is an amazing, amazing champion for New York City school children, and I want to give him a big round of applause for his leadership. You know, fixing our schools, improving our schools is not an easy task, and I am so glad that we are all partners in this ongoing challenge to improve our system so all children feel safe, supported, and protected. And adding social workers to our schools is pivotal in creating a healthy learning environment. The council understands this, and that is why we worked with the mayor and the chancellor and UFT, and we really heard it from teachers. Teachers kept telling us over and over again this was necessary. That's why we are so glad that we added 200 new social workers, and we baselined 285 social workers, a combination of Bridging the Gap social workers and Thrive social workers in middle schools and other DOE social workers, a wide array of different students that are going to be served by these social workers. And the times we're living in can be confusing for young people. They are bombarded with conflicting ideas on social media. They are grappling with so much stress, classes, sometimes being bullied, and family pressure. And there are also more severe problems, which we know social workers can help with, like housing instability and homelessness and food insecurity. It is a crisis when you have, at one point during the school year, 110,000 students deemed unstably housed, almost 10% of the total number of students in our public school system. And we want social workers to be a resource for those children and for their families. We want them to be able to find someone they can speak with. These social workers will help the most vulnerable students. As I said, 85 of them are going to go to students in middle schools through Thrive, and the other batch are going to help students who are really grappling with homelessness. And the average stay for families in homelessness is over 400 days. So we want to make sure that throughout the entire school year, they are getting the support that they need. Social workers should not have to choose between meetings with students who are maybe acting out in class because they're not getting the support they need versus meeting with children who just want to talk and just want to talk about what's going on in their lives. Every student deserves to be heard. Every student deserves a social worker, but those decisions happen all the time in our schools right now, where we don't have enough social workers or guidance counselors to be able to serve all children, and some students get lost in that process, which is why we want to make sure that all young people have that support. This budget, a budget is a document of our values and of our priorities, and prioritizing and valuing 285 social workers shows our commitment. This budget recognizes that more social workers are needed to create healthier, happier, and more supported young people in our city. And I've said it many times in the last few days since the handshake with the mayor, but this budget is personal to me in many ways. I understand how valuable social workers and guidance counselors are to a young person. When I was 16 years old, living in a little tiny town 30 miles north of Boston in Massachusetts, and I was depressed, despondent, and suicidal because I knew I was gay. I was scared to come out. The very first person that I ever told that I was gay to, when I think I was 15 years old at that point, was a guidance counselor who at one point said something very kind to me in passing because they knew that I was having a difficult day. And then they put a sticker on their door that said "Safe Space" with a pink triangle. And when I was bordering on total depression and felt like I couldn't function, and I felt like I had to tell one person, the one person I went to was that guidance counselor. This is why we need more guidance counselors and social workers in our schools. Students need many mentors, and teachers can't do it all alone. They need other support as well from guidance counselors and social workers. And this budget is a commitment to our future and a roadmap for the city we want to be, the city New Yorkers deserve. I was here mostly today to focus on, of course, the prioritization of social workers that we won in this budget and the shared values and commitment to that. I want to say one thing very quickly on the restorative justice and the MOU. I am so excited we are doing this because this is a game changer for the way we think about how you support students in our school system. We know right now the average suspension time is 13 days. 13 days. What happens to a student if they are suspended for 13 days? What does that do to them? And I think this process, the social and emotional learning process, is really about meeting people where they are. It's really about leading with empathy and with compassion and greater reconciliation and healing. And that MOU is from the Giuliani days. We are long past the Rudy Giuliani days in New York City. This is a new city with new values. So I am grateful that in 2019, I never have to say his name. Thank you very much.
So much could be said, but we'll continue on the topic. This very, very careful, important process proceeded with a great dialogue with Michael Mulgrew and his team to make sure that when everything we did, we were giving more tools to teachers, that we were going to ensure that educators could achieve what they sought to achieve as professionals, to be there for every single child, to educate every single child. And Michael, I want to say a real thank you to you. This took a lot of work. It took understanding a whole host of different perspectives to get it right. I think we have struck the kind of balance that's going to allow everyone to do their best for each other and to move the system forward. I want to express my gratitude to you. Michael Mulgrew, President of UFT. I don't think you need that. I don't think you need that.
No, I don't. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
First, I want to thank the mayor and the First Lady. I am so happy to be here today. We've been trying to change the way our system works for over a decade, and we've made small increments, but today we're saying no more small increments, we're taking the big steps now. So thank you for your leadership. To Corey Johnson, I came to you and City Council, and I said, we have this body of work that we want you to look at. We're missing some pieces. We need some help right now. And you said, what is that? You said, talk to a chairperson of education who I love to talk to because he's my colleague as a high school teacher. And I said to Mark, Mark, this is what we're doing. This is where it is. And he goes, you're 100% right. We're going to do everything we have to do. We will not finish this budget until we fulfill the mandate of getting the social workers. So thank you to City Council and to your Speaker, Speaker Johnson. And Richard and I, here we go again. We just keep rolling things out, and we're going to make a difference. So about 5 years ago, we embarked on a whole different strategy, the teachers of New York City, because we had given up on this whole piece. Many of the people in this room have interviewed me in different times. Suspensions are up, suspensions are down, zero tolerance, coddle everyone. No one was getting it. None of those debates were going to help our school system. They were inane. I know everybody had a job to do, I get that. But in the end, we kept saying, we live in a whole different world now than when most of us grew up. Those old paradigms are gone. It's complicated out there. So we embarked over 5 years ago on our own program known as the Positive Learning Collaborative. A bunch of teachers came to me and said, we've been trained, and then we went to the Department of Education, and a group of folks at the Department of Education and at the UFT got together and started running, at that point, 8 schools, then 15 schools. Now we're up to 31 schools. And we trained them on a whole host of different strategies, which we are now calling here today restorative justice. Restorative justice is a toolbox full of all these different strategies. And we tell a school, you choose what is appropriate because you know the children best inside of your school building. But we need you to have a plan. We did not tell them to lower their suspensions, but guess what happened? Their suspensions dropped dramatically. Dramatically. Over 80% in these schools. More importantly, the students, the teachers, and the parents all said, our schools are so much now a better place for everyone involved. So we've taken that fight to this place now here today. Because for a teacher in a classroom who's not part of a school who has this training, they're stuck in many times. If a child is having some really difficult times and in a crisis and acts out inside of a classroom or a school, guess what we have to do to get them the help that they need? We have to start filing paperwork for months and months. And that child is still in distress. And what is the intervention? We're not sure yet because we still have to file paperwork because we've never had this tool at our disposal for the entire system. That is the reality of a teacher inside of a classroom, inside of a school building. So today we're saying that ends. If there is a child in a crisis, an emotional crisis, or a child who is in distress and acting out, we now have the ability to say, no paperwork, pick up the phone, someone's coming to the building right away, and we're gonna make sure that we get that child into a better place immediately so we remove the crisis. Then more importantly, we can get them the clinical intervention they need at the short term. We can stop this silliness of filing paperwork to get children help. It's over, it is over. And for those children, for children who are just having a bad day. It happens, folks. I'm looking at the faces in here in the heat, and some of you look like you're about to have a bad day. Let's be clear. What do you say to the children upstairs in the classroom? Some of them might be a little agitated today. We want to say, you're having a bad day? We're going to make sure we're going to take you to a place that you're going to get to a better place, reflect on what's going on. We don't want this punitive policy. We want to make sure that we have a process in place. And that's all the teachers have been asking for years. When a child is acting out, when a child is clearly in crisis, why do we have to do paperwork for months? If a child's having a bad day, I also have to make sure all of the other children have a good day in terms of learning. And I need a place to take care of that issue. And it shouldn't be just punitive. We can talk about it. Let's train. Let's put these things in place. So you're seeing that that's what's being announced here today. This is based off of what happens each and every day inside of a classroom and inside of a school. This is not political rhetoric from the outside. What is your debate? What do you feel about this? We've given up a long time ago on adults as teachers. We will tell you this. We're here for the children. We can have these discussions with children. We know we can get them to a place that they will understand and be able to reflect, take responsibility, and move on with their education. And those who have the greatest difficulties, we want to make sure we have the clinical expertise involved because the New York City teachers have never had access to that expertise unless they filled out months of paperwork. So I thank everyone here for making this happen. I thank the fact that we are now doing social emotional learning from K through 12th grade. We understand that social emotional learning is something that will benefit everyone, not just the students, but also the adults that are doing the training. So I thank everyone here very, very much. And to the social workers, I know you're probably listening to this or you will see all the reports. You know how do you do your work. Don't feel pressure. Do what you know how to do, because everyone up here made it sound as if the social workers will snap their fingers and fix everything, okay? They're great at what they do. But let's be clear, this is New York City, the largest, most diverse, most challenging school district in the country, saying today we're taking on a completely different system. We're taking on a challenge that most people would shy away from. We're not having the debate anymore about zero tolerance versus coddle everyone. We're saying, let's make it real, let's make every child a better person and let them be capable of learning. And I thank you all so much for doing this today.
This is the epitome of the use of the phrase last but not least, because he is, with his colleagues, the person who's helping us to make so much of this come alive here in New York City. As Chancellor of the National University System, which runs the Sanford Harmony curriculum, these are the folks who have really innovated so much of the way forward here and are doing so much and donating so much to make this work right here. My pleasure to introduce Dr. Michael Cunningham. Thank you, Matt.
Good afternoon, everybody. I know right after me, you all get to get out of this heat, so I'll make it quick. First thing I have to say is Rakaya. I, like the mayor, was blown away by your words and your poise and your leadership ability. So we have 130 programs at the National University System, all the way up to 25 doctoral programs. You have a full scholarship whenever you want. Okay. Truly, we were blown away. So best of luck to you. And you can study online, or you can come with me in San Diego and hang out there for a while if you like. So thank you, Mayor de Blasio, for those wonderful, that introduction and all you do for this great city. You know, today I had the wonderful pleasure of watching the First Lady in the classroom with around 20 pre-K students or first grade students, and what a job. And I can see why you have this effervescence and everyone loves you and you are an exemplar of all that's good in the world. So thank you very much. I just want to remind you, in case you don't remember this, but First Lady is transferable to other offices. Just in case. There you go, there you go. Anyway, hello, PS 705. It's so very exciting to join you here today at this amazing school. It's especially exciting for me to be here because I was born a few blocks away from here in Astoria, Queens. There you go. And my dad was a third-generation New York City fireman. So I wish he was still alive, and my mom, to see me stand next to the mayor, this is a big deal. So thank you very, very much. As Chancellor of the National University System, we are pleased to be partnering with the New York City Department of Education to expand universal access to the Sanford Harmony program. These initiatives announced today create a strong foundation for future generations and a positive path for our nation. We support these initiatives since they support learning and have an emphasis on collaboration, communication, and problem-solving skills. Each of these skills are taught at the earliest ages through our Sanford Harmony program. I'd like to just do a quick thank you again to the mayor and to the wonderful First Lady, who's probably my new best friend right now. Thank you. To the school chancellor, who was also in the classroom doing a great job and has great connections with children also, Richard Carranza, to UFT President Michael Melgrew. A special thank you to someone that's in the audience right now, the president of Long Island University, Dr. Kim Klein. Could you stand up, Kim, please? We can't do it alone, so we partner with other universities around the country to actually help distribute and advance the work with this wonderful program. And Dr. Klein has been the cheerleader, the person that's been making happen in every single school. And she happens to be my neighbor out on Fire Island, and we devised this scheme together a few years ago. So thank you very much, Dr. Klein. I can't thank you enough. Wonderful school principal, the newly minted Dr. Sandra Soto, thank you very much. Chief Beltron, thank you. And also a Special thank you to philanthropist T. Denny Sanford. You know, many of you on the East Coast don't really know who Denny is, but I'll give you a little snippet. T. Denny Sanford, one of the world's most generous philanthropists. Over the last 10 years, he's donated $1.7 billion to education causes and to health causes. And one of his, what he calls his legacy, is a Sanford Harmony program. He's donated $160 million in the last 3 years to develop and distribute this program to school children nationwide for absolutely free. So Denny, I know you're not here today, but thank you. We are so proud at the National University System to support efforts that reduce suspensions, support safer schools, and create a foundation for lifelong learning. Before I talk a little bit more about Sanford Harmony, I have around 3 minutes left, just in case you're wondering. I'd like to introduce you to the National University System. The system includes, we're based out of San Diego, we include National University, North Central University, the City University of Seattle, John F. Kennedy University, and the Sanford program, Sanford Inspire, Sanford Institute of Philanthropy, and Sanford Harmony. Now, I'll stay after in case you have all questions about that, I can fill you in. Altogether, we have around 45,000 students, and actually 45,001 now. We are committed to education and work in preparing teachers, school counselors, principals, and superintendents. In fact, we are one of the top 10 largest schools of education in the country, our Sanford College of Education, and we educate around 11% of teachers in California every year. Sanford Harmony helps children develop social emotional learning skills in communication, collaboration, problem solving, and respecting differences. These skills have been shown to reduce bully-type behaviors, increase school engagement, and support academic achievement. Empathy goes way up. Students are solving problems amongst themselves, and they align closely with the foundational approaches of restorative justice practices. They also have the capacity to make our economy stronger. In fact, employers are increasingly seeking employees who have strong skills in communication, decision-making, problem-solving, and collaboration. What a wonderful mix. So yes, social emotional learning is about supporting safer schools, creating more positive school cultures, and equipping our students with the skills that will allow our economy to remain strong. Sanford Harmony is also about the power of relationships that transform our society. Sanford Harmony offers a comprehensive resource kit for educators, online support services, as well as intense training and support, all, as I said, at no cost to the school, thanks to T. Denny Sanford. New York City is central to this story. We launched the nationwide expansion of Sanford Harmony in 2015 here in New York City with my good friend, President Klein of Long Island University. Since then, in collaboration with Dr. Klein and Long Island University, Sanford Harmony is now reaching more than 225,000 students throughout the city in schools, preschools, boys and girls clubs, YMCAs, and other youth programs. Today, Sanford Harmony is now being used throughout the United States and more than 20 countries, reaching more than 7.7 million students. Our goal by 2023 is to reach at least 25 million students. And in case you don't know that, there are 30 million students pre-K through 6th grade, so we have a lot of work to do, a lot of wood to chop. But being in New York City and making it happen is so very important, so thank you for that. Today's announcement cements this effort and means we'll expand universal access to the Sanford Harmony program in all pre-K through 6th grade schools in New York City. We're excited to have such wonderful partners as the mayor, as the chancellor, as the school unions, and all the teachers and principals in this room. You know, I mentioned before the talk, I said, yes, Sanford Harmony is a wonderful curricula. It is a great toolkit for teachers, but it's the teachers. It's the teachers using this toolkit that make the difference. And that's why I believe, and I think all of us in this room believe, that teachers is the highest profession we can have. We can't pay them as much as doctors and lawyers, but it's the highest profession. And we owe all of you a big gratitude. So thank you, and I'm so excited to partner with you in making this society a better place. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Cunningham, it is a very special thing to have a New Yorker come home and do something great for his hometown. So let's thank him for all he's doing for us. You also did a very impressive Oprah Winfrey impression, just giving out the scholarship on the spot. Little dramatic flair there. Well done. Well done. Okay, for the media now, questions on this announcement and anything regarded to education, and then we'll go to off-topic after Dave.
Mayor, can you explain what the Chancellor referred to, or the Chancellor can, what the policy was with the police, the memo of understanding, what it is now, and does that change our policy with metal detectors in schools?
So I'll let the Chancellor come up. I'll just do the preface here. For a long time, a lot of people have said in this town we needed to create an approach that was student-focused, that was educator-focused, but also maintained safety, and rebalance the equation, and ensure the voices of educators in their own buildings mattered, and that we were thinking about how to address students and all their needs, not, as you heard, just the punitive approach that often was there in the past. This is the result of an immense collaboration between NYPD and DOE to get that right, to modernize, to bring us into this moment in history. The approach on metal detectors, as you know, is school-by-school decision-making based on the conditions, but we also know that overwhelmingly we've moved away from metal detectors all over New York City while driving down crime, while driving down violence. With that, I turn to our Chancellor.
Thank you, Mayor. So the Giuliani-era MOU really talked about a zero-tolerance approach. It talked about how police officers would have a significant presence in schools. We know that we are in a much different place, especially with going to root causes and helping to build skills in students so that they don't get themselves in positions where they're either being antisocial or they're breaking the law. So through a long process, I mean, I was here a matter of weeks when I read where we were and I looked at the agreement. I said, no, we're not going farther. We're going to go farther. So I want to give tremendous credit to the NYPD because we have now changed the presence of policing in our schools. Police should enforce the law. They shouldn't enforce the law in schools as a matter of course. There are better ways of producing good academic and socio-emotional results that don't require law enforcement. But NYPD is in a different place as well. With neighborhood policing, there's a different philosophy about how you enforce the law, how you communicate, how you interact with the community. I want you to know that our school safety agents under the leadership of Chief Beltron are embracing that neighborhood policing orientation where they see themselves, our school safety agents, as a part of the fabric of the schools. All of that is encapsulated in the MOU. Now, one of the things that I think people will say, and I wouldn't be surprised if this isn't already out there, well, teachers will no longer have access to school safety agents. That is absolutely false. If a teacher needs that support, they will still have that support. That's not going anywhere. What's different is how we engage and when we engage and what that kind of engagement looks like. So we want kids to feel safe and secure. We want parents to know their schools are going to be safe and secure. And the MOU, which you will all have an ability to read, encapsulates that philosophy in a very real way.
Just to follow up on that, can you give us a couple of top-line examples of...
Hold on, I think we have the same question.
Okay, fine.
Of what's changing.
Yeah.
You know, when did you used to call a school safety agent and now you're not?
Yeah, so I'm going to ask our Deputy Chancellor, LaShawn Robinson, to give you some very specifics on that.
I think with those heels, you don't need
Yeah, I think I'm good. Thank you. So thank you so much for that question. What's changing will be joint training with school teams and school safety around de-escalation, the effects of trauma on young people, conflict resolution. School safety will be invited to participate in training on social-emotional learning, restorative practices. We will have opportunities for school leaders to weigh in on the performance of school safety agents in their school communities. And in particular, if there's an incident regarding, for example, a uniform issue or cutting class, we expect our educators, as they do every single day, to be the first people that are addressing young people for those issues. If there's a safety-related issue or a crime kind of issue, then we expect school safety agents to continue to partner with us to keep our schools safe and respond.
Are there specific areas where students in the past were getting summonsed or something like that from these school safety agents where now the ideal would be that they wouldn't be? I guess I'm trying to just explain, so
We will have diversionary responses for low-level offenses, absolutely.
Yeah, let me try and help you. I understand you're trying to make it vivid. Neighborhood policing, as the Chancellor said, this is the clue here. This is taking neighborhood policing and applying it in our schools. You remember originally neighborhood policing was on our streets. The day came when we said we're now bringing neighborhood policing to our transit system. Well, this is a whole different take, but it's the same idea. We're taking neighborhood policing into our schools. So rather than focus on the traditional, more punitive approaches, we're making decisions based on what makes sense in each situation, listening intensely to the educators who know the students best, listening to the students themselves. So, for example, one of the things I often quote this, Bill Bratton, to me, the leading authority on policing in the last half century, he said there's a mistake that's made a lot of times in understanding policing, that arrest is seen by some as an achievement unto itself, and that's not true. He said this very publicly, that arrest is one of many tools. Sometimes a summons is a better choice. Sometimes a warning is a better choice. Sometimes giving someone guidance. You made a mistake, don't do that again. This is taking some of those same ideas and applying them in the schools. There's times when a warning card is an example. There's times when a conversation is the best way to resolve issues. Clearly restorative justice too. Getting everyone on the same page that restorative justice can work for everyone, where you're stopping problems before they happen. Things like a peer mediation. So we'll get you all the specifics, but to give you the flavor of it, it is moving away from a situation that too often was simply trying to assign blame and assign punishment, and it was kind of a merry-go-round. And I'm saying this as I was a public school parent, and I was a school board member back in the day when we had them, and everything I've done since. I have heard educators say, this is not working, we're not getting where we need to be. Parents, young people, all saying, why are we doing the same thing over and over again if it's not working? This is to help stop problems before they happen, and then when the problem emerges, try and get to the root cause of it so it won't happen again. That's what I think it's all about. Please.
When you say like social emotional learning and restorative justice are going to happen in every city school, will they be required to participate in certain trainings or use certain curricula, or is it optional?
Shirley, Chancellor, who wants it?
So what we're announcing today is not by invitation. It's because these are proven strategies and proven to produce the kinds of results we want. This is part of the training that everyone will get. So if you want to work with the students in New York City, you're signing up already saying, yes, this is part of my toolkit. This is what we want to do. I think what's really, really important about this as well is that, as President Mulgrew has said, this is something teachers have wanted in New York City for years and years and years. And I would be remiss if I didn't recognize, because I didn't do this by name earlier, but our Superintendent Clarence Ellis is here, and our Executive Superintendent Barbara Freeman are here. And they can also give you some incredible examples of when you take an approach where everybody is trained, you can actually change the entire environment in a school. So this is not voluntary. This is everybody's going to do it. Yes.
The MOU says 2 of the offenses that shouldn't be given summonses or arrests if it can be handled safely are graffiti and or vandalism and pot smoking. Of course, those 2 offenses, you would be arrested if you did them on the street. So just wondering what kind of lesson that sends to kids that the law is different.
Sorry. I appreciate the question, but pot smoking obviously is being handled differently at this point in our city, even separate from Albany. So you said you would be arrested on the street. That is not the reality now in New York City. What's that? You said arrested. I mean, yeah, no, I want to be very, very clear because it's something I don't want any misunderstanding on. Right, I think the point is to try to address the situation. I appreciate you gave that initial qualifier, if it can be done safely, if it's the right thing. It's not rigid. There's always part of the goal of neighborhood policing is to train our officers and give them discretion. In schools, that also means consultation with educators. But it's not a one-size-fits-all. The notion is if you don't need to use a certain punishment, don't use it. But sometimes you do need to use it. So there is that flexibility. It's an indicator. We're trying to solve problems at the root rather than to, again, go on that merry-go-round. So what you want to do is help convince someone, young person, not to continue antisocial behavior. you can do that with less punitive approaches, that's ideal. Sometimes that doesn't work and you have to go up the scale. Yeah.
For the social workers, there are 85 of them. How exactly are they being dispatched and assigned to different schools? Is it a case-by-case basis?
So I'll start, then I'll turn it over to our expert here. But we are in the process right now of determining how that best is going to look like at schools. I just want to make a distinction. These are clinical social workers, so they're providing direct services to students and students that are in crisis. But I'm going to ask our Deputy Chancellor to elaborate a little more on that.
They'll be based in school communities and districts and borough offices as close to schools as they can be so that they can respond quickly, and they'll be assigned by need. Thank you.
All right. Who hasn't gone? Wait, who hasn't gone? Who hasn't gone? Yes.
If a student is found with marijuana in their possession and the choice is made not to refer it to NYPD for an arrest or summons, what happens? Do they get suspended? Do they, does it get confiscated? I assume.
Keep them on too. Wait, Mr. Taller now.
Thank you. So we've had a warning card program now, almost for the full school year. We've given around 300 warning cards. And those warning cards, before we issue those warning cards, we discussed that with the administration in the schools, with the principals, about is this the best course of action? Is there any past history, with the child, disciplinary history with the child, or behavioral issues inside the school? So we make that decision jointly together. And then it's really, the parent gets notified through the schools, and then it's up to the schools, especially in terms of marijuana, to provide some sort of support to make sure that so we won't have recidivist type behavior, or at least they're put on a different path.
Is there a certain amount that a student can have in their possession that would allow them to avoid arrest? I mean, if kids are dealing in schools, I imagine the amount would be more, and thus the punishment would be arrest.
There's a little bit of judgment involved with that because you can quantify. The containers come different when it comes to marijuana. It's sometimes it comes in candy form, sometimes it comes in bags and smokable form. But we've been using, if it's 3 or more, then they would usually get a summons, depending on the circumstances, depending on the age and everything else. But that's really, that's where if it's a one bag, but it's a very large bag, then the person may not qualify for the warning card. Okay. Ruben Beltran, Chief Beltran, thank you.
Same warning given for spitting.
It's Beltran, B-E-L-T-R-A-N.
Spell Ruben for them.
Oh, Ruben, R-U-B-E-N.
First lady's coming up.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to say that I'm very troubled to hear all these questions that are focusing on discipline when I feel like no one was listening. Today is all about how we are making sure that our young people have the skills, the social emotional skills, so that they can exhibit positive behaviors, how they can handle conflict in a positive way, how we can move forward without all of this other stuff that you're asking about. I feel like you're stuck in the past here. This is, and I think they agree with me. Certainly.
Is the Z alien guy, is he going to be part, or he or she, whatever it is?
Z, no gender, no orientation, no. Z is just Z.
Is he going to be in every elementary school program that the
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Z is like the mascot for the social emotional program, the Sanford Harmony approach.
Who else? Go ahead.
Cost of the program between Sanford Harmony Totally Free the Schools and between the 85 social workers, is there a total estimate for how much this whole initiative is costing?
The costs are not all lumped together because they're, funding comes in different streams. The Sanford Harmony program is 3 years. They're training all these teachers for free. I don't have what that would mean in terms of dollars. We can get that to you, but it is free.
Free is a good number.
Yeah, free is a very good number. Question? LaShawn? Oh, you want to?
Thank you, First Lady. That's just to add, for the other components of the programming, we're still working with OMB. It's about 5 to 10 million that we're anticipating for the full package. We've leveraged, the DOE has leveraged quite a bit of internal resources to be able to fund the work. And of course, City Council has supported this work tremendously through the social workers.
Thank you.
Okay, who has not gone yet? Anyone back there?
A question about special next to it's an part of your education agenda and of moving forward on the
Yeah, we'll do education topics too. Let me just see if there's anything else on the announcement. We'll come right to you. Is there anything else on this announcement?
20 days of a suspension is a long time. Why not go lower than the maximum?
I'll start and I'll let the educators speak. I think the point was we have been consistently reducing the number of suspensions while achieving more safety and a better school environment. We've been reducing the time of suspensions also while achieving more safety and a better school environment. So we want to keep driving that down, but there are exceptional situations, and we want to be able to address those exceptional situations as well. Anyone want to?
This whole announcement is not about number of days, because there's always exceptions to everything. We've been very clear about this. The whole idea is that, one, if we know a child is having difficulties or having challenges and they come to us, we want to get them the support that they need now before they make a bad mistake, which would warrant something that we know will affect them for the rest of their life. We're trying to avoid that. This is something that is difficult at times, but when a child does something that is extreme, then we have to make sure we know that that's going to go past 20. But at the same time, we're also saying now that we're going to get you a lot more support, and we want this not to be something that affects you in a very negative way for the rest of your life. And we also have to deal with the fact that there are other children involved in these things. So it's tough at times to have these conversations, and people like to fixate on numbers, as we've seen. But overall, this is more about a proactive approach. Let's get to children before. If we can identify them ahead of time, I know that through our PLC program in 31 schools, those schools can tell me there are a small number of children who need a clinical intervention, which we did not have the ability to get them before, but now we will be able to do that. And hopefully, this whole idea is about avoiding a child making a bad decision, which will affect them for the rest of their life. That's what this is about.
Wanted to get rid of the metal detectors at their schools. And I know you said that's a school-by-school decision, but what is the process if that's something that the community wants to do?
I'll start, and Chief and Chancellor, Deputy Chancellor. I mean, the idea here is to recognize we've come a long way. I've been in this city for many decades. I remember when the city was just constantly dealing with violence and challenges in our schools and outside. We've come a long, long way. And the last 5, now 6 years, we've gone even farther. So we're in a very different environment now. And we're in a position now to get at these root causes in a whole different way, to help our young people in a whole different way, in terms of our streets, to get at the root causes of crime in a whole different way. It's just we have literally gone into a new era. In that context, the process is if a school community has a desire for metal detectors or to remove metal detectors, there's a process between DOE and NYPD to determine if that makes sense. We listen very, very carefully in that process, of course, to NYPD's expertise as the safety experts. Sometimes there's an incident or something external that causes NYPD or DOE to say, hey, we got a special situation here, we need to do something temporarily or for a longer period of time. But mainly it's a conversation that begins in the school community, and then there's a process to decide, and that's been working. Anything to add?
The mayor just described it exactly the way it is, but I also want to give some context because like all of us, we're out in the community and we listen. New York City is a world-class city. It's a destination city. It's also a destination target city. So as a chancellor of schools, I want to make sure that when parents send their children to schools, they know that those schools are going to be safe, they're going to be secure, and that we are working hand in hand with the most recognized security, anti-terrorist, law enforcement agency in the world. It's NYPD. So when I say that we work hand in hand, we do. We review data together, we review statistics together, we listen to the community, but we have a process in which we always are reevaluating how is it, what's going on, and when we have to make decisions to add or remove, we do that. There's a real-time way of doing that.
Oops. So thank you. All I was going to add was that that we were directed by the mayor. One of my first meetings when I took over the school safety command was for us to look at schools that currently have scanning, look at other places that may need scanning, and we went through that process, and we changed some schools from full-time to part-time, some from part-time to no scanning, and I think there was one school that was added to the full-time scanning, and so will be soon. So, and we're going to start that process now. That's going to be a regular process for us, working with DOE, working with the Office of Safety and Youth Development with Mark Rampersant, and we do this. We're going to do this on a regular basis, and we also listen to students. We've done over 25 listening sessions throughout the year, and we ask the students what they feel about scanning and about how they will feel about that being taken away or being changed. So we're trying to get input from everywhere, but we have a process working with DOE to make that determination, and then we share that with the school community.
I'm just going to add one parent's point of view, which is I don't want anyone to stereotype our parents. Shirley and I were public school parents. We care first and foremost about the safety of our kids. A lot of parents do not think that necessarily means scanning. It depends on the situation in the school. We want safety more and more, and this is why that famous phrase, if you see something, say something, is the essence of how we achieve public safety in New York City today, is with the connection and the unity of our public safety officers with communities. So if there is a dialogue, if information is flowing, that is the best way to keep everyone safe. There are some schools where scanning makes sense. There are some schools where it doesn't. But parents are quite clear. They want the best educational environment for their kids, and they want safety, and that is different in every single place. Anyone else on the announcement before media questions on the announcement, and then we'll go to other education and then off topic. Go ahead.
The cost, what's free and what's 5 to 10 million?
Say again now?
The cost, what exactly is free and what's the 5 to 10
The
million?
free element is what Sanford Harmony National University is doing. Thank you very much. And then the cost element is what we put out on the day of the handshake and obviously was voted on yesterday. I don't know if anyone has the numbers at their fingertips, otherwise we'll get it to you right after this.
Chancellor said 5 to 10 million. Is that for the social workers, or is that like for the training, and then the social workers come from the city council?
And we're happy to get you more detail, our COO.
Okay, we've got hold on, the COO has arrived, Ursula Ramirez.
The total, so when Deputy Chancellor Robinson had mentioned 5 to 10 million, that is for when we look at the Restorative Justice program, the PLC program for this upcoming school year. The 85 social workers that we got into the adopted budget is approximately $11 million, and that was with the City Council's partnership.
So it's 5 to 10 plus 11.
Correct. And that 5 to 10 is for year one, and we'll be working with our colleagues in OMB as we roll out to assess the price and the cost moving forward.
One more quick thing on the Sanford Harmony program. That package is that's free to the schools, but it's around a $5.8 million investment.
Deputy Chancellor, one more point of clarification on the allotment of the social workers. Like in the example that the speaker gave, for example, when he was in high school and he had no one to go to, he went to the social worker's door. In this case, are there going to be like designated social workers? So if the student wants to go see someone as opposed to an administrator or someone calling for help on their behalf, how is that going to work in terms of the students' access to these counselors and social workers?
As you can imagine, we recently received the funding for the program, and we were able to pull everything together to roll it out. We've been meeting, collaborating with so many key stakeholders, but I actually like that one. What's your name? Stacy. Thank you, Stacy. We're going to call that the Stacy part of the package that will give students direct access. Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you, Stacy. Now, media question?
Well, I wanted to ask, with the flexibility of the educator in the school to be able to implement the restorative practice, right? How are you going to keep them accountable of rolling it out with fidelity, and how will that be measured in the future?
Excellent question. How will we keep it accountable and measure all those good things you do?
Thank you. So we will be monitoring a few key metrics, including incidents in schools. We'll also continue to monitor suspensions. Survey data will be another metric that we'll monitor. And I'll be directly responsible for fidelity and implementation. And I'm depending on everyone here today that said they wanted these practices in schools to support and be a part of this process, because it is really about supporting every young person, both inside and outside of the classroom.
I turn to other education topics, and going to the back, we have, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was asking, as part of your education agenda, what's the plan for the special ed school reform moving forward?
Well, the first thing to say is that until the Albany legislative session is over, we're not assuming anything. We've seen lots of interesting things happen in Albany over the years, and everyone is still there, and they're still discussing a variety of issues. So I'm not going to prejudge the outcome in Albany until the ink is dry. So let's do that first, and then we can say, obviously, our goal in any scenario is to work with all communities to find a positive way forward that really does change a status quo that I think is broken, but we can do that in a way that respects all communities. I had a very positive and constructive meeting with a group of leaders from the Asian American community as a beginning of a bigger dialogue, and we're going to be doing a lot more of that. But again, let's first see what happens in Albany. Other education questions? Yes?
No, it's you. Me.
No, right behind you.
Oh, no. Okay, yes. Just, I want to get clarity on the discipline code changes. Is there a hard ban on suspensions over 20 days?
Yeah, that was easy. No, because we certainly have federal and state legislation that mandates suspensions above 20 days. And for serious and violent acts, we will continue to review on a case-by-case basis. The point is to not fixate on the days. Right now, the average length of a suspension is 13 days. We are really fixating on the supports that we need to have in place to be proactive and to support every child in every school community.
So like last year, I think a quarter of suspensions were for 20 days or more. Do you have like a projection of what number of what that number will be next year with these changes?
Last year, we had approximately 9%, I believe, of suspensions at greater than 20 days. This year, I believe we're at about 6%. So it's a very, very small number of suspensions. As I shared, the average length is about 13 days. But again, we're looking at proactive supports, and that should be the takeaway today.
25% of superintendent suspensions.
On education, yes?
For the mayor and the chancellor, what do you think about two councilmen calling for investigations into DOE Community Affairs Director Sadye Campamore for pressuring DOE staffers to attend a political rally supporting the chancellor?
It's Sadie. I've known Sadie for many years. She is a very, very fine public servant. I know for a fact that she's the kind of person who does her work in a very honorable way with a lot of integrity. It's something that probably was just ill-considered and shouldn't happen again, but that's, as far as I can see, that's all there is to it.
So while I don't know all of the details, I want to echo what Mayor de Blasio said about Sadie Campoamor. Campoamor. So that's what I do. I'm a teacher. But let's be clear, her job is community outreach. She works with community-based organizations all day long. She shares information with community-based organizations. She makes sure that they are aware of what is happening in terms of events that pertain to the Department of Education. And when I arrived 14 months ago, most of the community-based organizations said, we wish you guys would just communicate with us. We wish we would knew what was going on. We wish we were part of the conversation. And Sadie has taken that job very seriously, and we're really excited about the work she's doing. But that's her job, to communicate with community-based organizations all day.
Questions, education, yes?
So a while back, there were some yeshivas that were denying access to DOE investigators, and the state education department had set a deadline for the visits to be scheduled. What's the status of that?
There were 2 left the last time that I heard the update, and what's happened on the final 2, Chancellor?
So all of the yeshivas that were mentioned in the complaint have all been visited by a DOE team. The visits were concluded. I am in the process, and I've let her know, sending a report to the Commissioner of the State Department of Education, and then we will continue to work very closely with SED on the next steps.
Anything else, education, yes?
Just back to the SHSAT, I understand that hope springs eternal in Albany, I guess.
Well, I think another way to say it,
place.
honestly, anything can happen in Albany. We have seen the most interesting things at the very last moment, so.
Yeah, I mean, that in consideration, even if it were to pass, it's obviously been the last minute, it hasn't been a smooth ride getting this legislation, before. And I'm curious whether, if it doesn't pass, you're open to looking at any other alternatives for diversifying the specialized high schools, or whether you're taking into consideration some of the conversations you had with parents recently at Grace Mansion and elsewhere, or community leaders. Do you think that there'll be any change to the strategy?
Look, I'm not going to get into a hypothetical, but I'll answer, I think, the spirit of your question. So first of all, this is a proposal that passed out of the Assembly Education Committee 2 years in a row now. They got very strong support from the caucus within the Assembly Democratic Conference. That has sparked a citywide conversation. When you say it has not been smooth, I think that's one of the truest statements you will make in 2019. It's contentious, difficult, challenging stuff in a multi-ethnic society that's dealing with a lot of history. But I've said very clearly, I want us, in whatever happens, to engage all communities and to do a better job of that, and to listen and to make sure we're understanding all the concerns and acting on them. Where my bottom line is that we have a situation that's obviously broken and doesn't reflect our city. And I believe it's one of the last bastions of just pure high-stakes testing, unfiltered, 100% high-stakes testing, which has been turned away from all over this nation. So I think that has to be addressed. But whatever happens next, it'll be a community process. It'll be a process with other elected officials to figure out what will work. Anything else on education? Going once, please.
Question. When we're thinking about classroom management and restorative justice, another thing that comes to my mind is classroom sizes. Like if we have huge classroom sizes and we're talking about the way that educators are going to be able to social emotionally support their students, is there any intake of how we're going to tackle classroom sizes in order to support this initiative?
Tackle is an interesting verb. If you said, how are we going to perfectly address the issue and finish the issue, I would tell you I don't have that. If you say, do we have a plan to make progress, I do have that. We have a huge, huge capital plan, first of all, wherein some of the most overcrowded districts will be getting a lot more school capacity. We're also building a lot of early childhood education centers. That's going to open up classrooms in existing school buildings because pre-Ks and 3Ks will go to those new centers. So as we open up space, that's one of the keys to reducing class size. Additional professionals, obviously, we've added to the number of teachers in a number of schools. We've done the work to improve the fair student funding formula so that a lot of schools are able to bring in more teachers, reduce class size. These are steps in the right direction. Really addressing the issue would take, I think, the Campaign for Fiscal Equity decision being fully implemented by the state of New York, and a lot more capital spending and a lot of time, because even just building the buildings takes time. So I think we're making progress. I think we need a whole different world in terms of Albany's commitment, and then ultimately a new federal commitment as well to get to that place we really want to get to. Okay, last call on education questions from the media. Last call.
Are there any other discipline code changes beyond the 20-day piece?
Other discipline code changes?
The Department of Education will host community engagement sessions, 5 sessions in total, 1 in each borough, where we welcome an opportunity for all community members to come on out and share any additional changes that they would like to propose.
Is proposing right now.
Correct. That is correct. And some other changes, such as moving the Student Bill of Rights, which currently lives in the back of the book. We believe it should be in the front of the book. We are fully aligning the definition for bullying, minor changes, but the major ones, and I'm sure the team, they'd be happy to provide some additional information.
Last call, education. Going to off-topic, other topics way back. A little louder. Legalization of e-bikes, e-scooters, right?
Is it all e-scooter sharing program operating in the city and how that would be integrated with our transit system?
This is only, we've gotten now the power to determine over the next half a year in the case of the e-bikes and longer in the case of e-scooters, what will work for our city, and the first thing we're going to consider is safety. But we have that process that we're now going to go through, working with other stakeholders, and everyone knows what I feel. I want safety first, but I think now that we have a legal structure, we can also figure out a way to address some of the economic justice issues and find ways to help ensure that scooters and bikes have real physical speed limitations on them. That's what we look forward to doing. Yes, Gloria.
Talk about the new NYCHA chair, specifically the questions around his salary. I just want to give you an opportunity to explain why you think he deserves that salary,
Sure.
why it's so high, and also some questions about how much time he will actually be spending here in the city, especially on weekends or holidays, as when the summer ends, when things we run into trouble.
I spent real time with Greg Russ, and so did a number of members of my team, a lot of folks at NYCHA, a lot of folks at HUD, a lot of folks at the Southern District. And he was a candidate that we agreed on by acclamation, by consensus. And clearly, in terms of everything we were looking for here, we wanted a proven leader, we wanted a change agent, we wanted someone who could take the RAD idea and implement it on a huge scale, we wanted someone who knew how to listen to residents, work with elected officials, work with a bigger team, manage a bigger team. He met all those criteria very strongly. He's devoted his entire professional life to public housing. The fact is, over the years, our NYCHA chairs have come from all different sorts of backgrounds for decades and decades. Probably you have to go back a long time to find someone with the extraordinary amount of experience in public housing that Greg Russ brings, and he's coming in at a time where really big changes are needed. So that's how we came to the conclusion that he was the right person for the job. In terms of the schedule, I have absolute confidence from the conversations with him that he's going to be where he needs to be, when he needs to be in terms of serving the people of public housing. He's been through it his whole life. If there's a particularly important moment, or God forbid there's a crisis, he's going to be there leading from the front. If you're talking about a typical weekend and things are going smoothly, and of course the general manager, Vito Mostacciolo, has done a fantastic job, he will always be here as well. I think it is understandable as someone whose family is in another place that he wants to spend time with his family as part of striking the balance. At some point, his family may be able to move here, but it couldn't be done on this immediate basis.
Specifically wanted to get your take on the figure,
Sure.
And explain it to folks who live in public housing. I mean, he's making more money than you're making.
I have no problem with that. I'll tell you why. It's the reality around the country. When you look at these absolutely crucial jobs, running public housing authorities, running public hospital systems, running school systems, these are exceedingly difficult jobs. In most parts of the country, they get many parts of the country, I should say, they get higher salaries than have been provided historically in New York, and New York's one of the highest cost places to live. So we were out of alignment actually quite a while ago. And this conversation over how we would find a new leader for NYCHA with our federal partners. I mean, HUD was the first to say, we need to adjust this salary structure for what's going on today. So when you think about the fact that he will now be responsible for improving the lives of 400,000 people, and that he has a proven track record of doing that, it is worth every penny to get the right person who will be there for the residents of NYCHA. Yeah.
There was a report yesterday in the Wall Street Journal about the prevailing wage legislation expanding the definition of public works, including a carve-out for New York City. Would that be a welcome development, excuse the pun, in your view?
The idea behind the legislation is to improve the quality of living of working people, and I agree with that idea. Our goal in government should be to constantly uplift working people, improve wages, benefits in every way we can. There are other things that have to be balanced in the equation, like affordable housing, school construction, other issues. There's been a very good dialogue in Albany about how to strike that balance. And I'm hopeful that we'll end up with, a fair outcome. But that conversation is talk about what we talked about earlier. There's many different possibilities still on the table in Albany with just hours to go. It could go any number of ways. Something that strikes that balance, that achieves the underlying goals that the sponsors want to achieve, which I commend, but also recognizes the public service dynamics, the public needs that we have to ensure are achieved as well. Yes.
Back to NYCHA, just on the salary, the Chancellor actually makes $50,000 less, and he's responsible for improving the lives of over 1 million New Yorkers. Sure. So could you address that? And then on Russ, can you talk a little bit more about what you hope he does to expand RAD?
Well, first of all, both Russ and Carranza make more than me. So, it's like, well, I'm actually responsible for 8.6 million people, public safety, hospitals, schools, parks, sanitation. So I'm not hung up on this point. Elected officials are historically held to a particular standard where our salaries are probably a lot lower than they would be on the quote-unquote open market, but that's a choice we make. But when it comes to getting the very best professionals in these fields, there's a competition in this country. If you go and look at the salaries that school chancellors and superintendents are getting around the country. Go and look at what public hospital system leaders get. Go and look at what public housing authority heads get. It's a competitive dynamic. And we're the greatest city in the world, and if we kept paying a salary that was not going to help us get the very best talent, that was not serving our people well. So I think what folks in public housing are going to say is the same thing I think a lot of parents, students, educators have thought in our school system. If the product is good, if the leader gets the job done, they're not going to get hung up on a competitive salary when you compare it to the rest of the country, especially because we're one of the most costly places to live in the country. Marcia.
What do you say to critics who say that it sends a bad signal to people who live in NYCHA, that you pick somebody who's a weekday warrior to deal with their problems when they think that have problems happen 7 days a week?
Yeah, Marcia, that's just wrong, respectfully. It's a very unfair characterization. If you look at what CEOs do nowadays, he is going to be responsible for everything that happens in public housing in this city 24/7, every day of the year. He knows it. He spent his lifetime working in public housing, which is a really tough environment to work in. He's devoted his entire professional career to helping low-income folks get affordable housing. He will have responsibility. He'll be all over it wherever he is. I really wish all of you would come forward into 2019 and recognize, with the kind of technology we have today and the expectations for any CEO today, you're on duty all the time, and you can do the job wherever you are. But if something requires his physical presence, I have absolute confidence he will be front and center where he's needed.
Just to follow up on that issue of his salary, did you guys offer this salary initially and he took the first offer, or did he negotiate?
I'm not going into details of personnel negotiations. This was a consensus arrangement with our federal partners and us and Greg Russ. And our federal partners felt strongly that we had to recognize the competitive salary dynamics.
Mayor, Vice President Biden has been criticized for having dealt with segregationist
senators in the past, and you've said a few things about this. I'm wondering about that. And are you rehearsing for the debates? And if so, how?
Those are two very different questions. Yeah, to be on the national stage and speak to millions of my fellow Americans about the future of this country, yes, of course I have to prepare. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but I have to prepare. There's been a lot of other things going on, the city budget and the Albany session, which is still going, and the work we are doing for this announcement, but of course I'm finding time to prepare as well. On the question of Vice President, I do want to read something here because it puts this into perspective, and this is very painful what I'm going to read. I just want to say it's shocking that this was ever said in our lifetime in the United States of America, but this was said, and this is why the Vice President needs to apologize for his reference to Senator James Eastland. So James Eastland said this at a rally during the famous bus boycott during the civil rights movement. This is a direct quote from James Eastland. He said, "In every stage of the bus boycott, we have been oppressed and degraded because of black, slimy, juicy, unbearably stinking N-words. African flesh eaters. When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary to abolish the Negro race, proper methods should be used. Among these are guns, bows and arrows, slingshots, and knives. All whites are created equal with certain rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of dead N-words." This is what James Eastland said. It's unbelievable to me that someone who wants to be the nominee of the Democratic Party for President of the United States would speak nostalgically of his relationship with not only a segregationist, but someone who encouraged violence against black people. So look, I've said many times, I respect Vice President Biden. I respect his public service, but he needs to apologize, and he needs to apologize now. It's as simple as that. We will get you the date. It's been out there today all over. We'll get you the date.
Mr. Mayor, there's a number of women in your administration who are serving in multiple roles, most notably Catherine Garcia, Lorraine Grillo, Julie Menin, and I'm just wondering if they wouldn't have, a case to make for salaries that are comparable to the Chancellor or the NYCHA chair, given the extra work they've been given.
Again, each one of those very fine public servants took on important tasks that were needed, and they're doing an incredible job with it. Obviously, based on the announcement of Greg Russ, Catherine Garcia is going to end that role in NYCHA once Greg is here. But these are devoted public servants, and they have strong teams that have been built up to help share that burden. We made sure that there was the right teams that would allow them to get job done that they wanted to get done. Yeah.
The Finance Board is about to launch this online voter registration, but our understanding is that after you register online, you're going to get a document that you have to sign and then send back, which may make things more cumbersome. Is there anything the city can do about this?
Look, I think the automatic voter registration is a huge step forward. And I wanted to say for a moment, I know we're all in the rush of events here, but I think this legislative session in Albany will go down in history as the most productive, most positive legislative session in generations, literally. I've never seen anything like it in my life. This is the ultimate proof that elections do matter, and what they did with election reform, criminal justice reform, congestion pricing, and the MTA plan, and everything that's moving now, it's unbelievable. A lot of us have been waiting literally a lifetime to see this happen. So the fact that they then threw in the automatic voter registration at the end was stunning. And we have to make sure it works in practice. We really do. So your point is well taken. If it's too cumbersome, it will not achieve its goal. We are definitely going to try and figure out how to make it as usable and user-friendly as possible. Who has not gone? Has everyone gone? Anna?
You guys, your campaign requested the FEC give you an extension on fundraising, citing all of your work as the mayor of New York City.
Not on fundraising. I think it was financial disclosure. The personal financial disclosure, if I remember correctly. I haven't seen the document, but.
Asking specifically about the letter notes that you have all these duties as mayor of New York. Do you think that you're kind of there ruining your argument that you can walk into?
It's a form respectfully. It's a form. It takes time to fill out. I entered the race very late, obviously. We're going to fill out the form. That's all I have to say. Go ahead.
Just on NYCHA, again, since it was such a long search for a new head, can you give us a flavor of what it was like? How many people did you consider? Did anyone turn you down? Who else was in the running?
I can give you a flavor, but I'm not going to take you on the whole journey in a lot of detail. The only person we offered the job to was Greg Russ. That's the most important fact. We looked at lots and lots of people, dozens of people, between, in fact, it was a very intensive effort. HUD Southern District, our team at City Hall, just nonstop daily conversations, reviewing names, ruling people in, ruling people out. It was a nonstop effort. But it became very clear over time that it would take a really skilled person with the willingness to go into such a tough situation. I could certainly say there were some people who were very skilled but were not willing to take on such a tough mission. He was, and he brought the whole package that we were looking for, so he was the one who got the offer. Gloria.
You're headed to South Carolina for the big fish fry? Fish fry?
Fish fry, yes.
Fry.
Yes.
What are your goals for this next trip? What are you setting out to do? What are your plans? Talk a little bit about that. Do you like fried fish? I mean...
Yes, I support fried fish. Shirley and I are going together. Obviously, South Carolina is a pivotal state. We've had great relationships that we're building there. We've started to get some support there that's going to make a big impact. So we're going to be doing a whole host of events over the next couple of days. And it's a chance to talk about things that South Carolinians want to hear about. They clearly want to know that the status quo can be changed in this country. And what I hear from people in South Carolina is, prove to me you know how to do it. And I show them the kinds of things we've done in New York, and it opens a lot of eyes, particularly pre-K for all has been a very powerful message in South Carolina. It's a place that's dealing with a real lack of education funding. So I'm really looking forward to this trip. I think it's going to be very important.
Do you plan to endorse in the Queen's DA race?
At this point, I'm not involved in that race. There's obviously still time, but at this point, I don't have a plan to. Yeah.
I have a follow-up really quickly to the e-bike question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm wondering, you were speaking with the provisions in the bill, one that bans their use on D-ways and another one that
banned what?
bans the use on D-ways.
Did you say freeways? Greenways. Greenways.
And then another one that limits the age of use to 16. I'm wondering how you feel about those provisions, if you feel they're necessary.
To be very clear, what we cared about in the legislation was, one, that there would be a legal framework, which we didn't have previously, and two, that there would be the ability of New York City to determine its own destiny, and now we're going to go through that process. So on those specifics, we'll certainly consider what they mean, but that's not in the front of my vision right now. In the front of my vision is coming up with a plan that will work for the city and keep people safe. Go ahead.
Mayor, does the salary that Mr. Russ is getting, the $400,000, include money for transportation to go back to work?
You can check with our team on the specific conditions. My understanding is it's just the straight salary. Yes.
Last year you announced an intention to start tackling issues of noise throughout the city to try to find ways to reduce it. And I know in this year's budget there's those rumblers for the fire engines, but are you going to do a more comprehensive plan, or are there other elements of what you plan to?
Yeah, we have more coming on noise for sure. Absolutely. Just give us a little time because we wanted to get through Albany and the budget and all, but it'll be coming soon. Okay, last call. Anything else? Yes.
Yes. Thinking of the Universal Pre-K program, which is an awesome program because I was one of the pioneering teachers who taught in the South Bronx as a Universal Pre-K teacher. One of the conflicting issues with being a Universal Pre-K teacher is that we were the lowest paid teachers, so it was really hard to retain teachers in the Bronx community because
so what's the punchline here?
Oh yes. So is there anything being done for ECE teachers to receive equitable salaries?
Well, that's, thank you for the question, and thank you for what you did as a teacher. This is the whole agreement we came to with the City Council on a pathway to address the parity issue, because these teachers mean a lot to us and to our children. So we have that process in place. It'll play out over the next few months. Okay, I think we're done. Thanks, everybody.